Hey, what's up, turtles? Krik here with Black Owl Outdoors. It's recently occurred to me that we've done a lot of videos on different types of knives, but I haven't really gone into detail about, knife safety or knife technique. So I wanted to change that today and talk about why a sharp knife is a safe knife. And we've all heard that saying probably, but do you know what it means? I brought two knives with me today, one's sharp and one's dull. The sharp knife is this Bark River knife. I forget its exact model name. You can search our channel and find it. Kept this one sharp, came super sharp. I've stropped it, convex edge, quality steel. And the dull knife is this Condor Mini Bush Lore. And quality and price really doesn't have anything to do with sharpness. Generally speaking, what it really means is how long the sharp edge will last on a higher quality steel. That's really relevant for what we're doing today. I'm just going to show examples of using a dull knife versus a sharp knife. To illustrate the purposes of this being sharp, we'll do a paper test to start with. Really no effort at all putting into that. Sharp. Let's grab our dull one. And our dull knife for today's video. Just tearing, not gripping into the paper at all. And some might call this a utility edge, which you'll see once I start using it. It's still well cut, but nowhere near as sharp as our sharp knife. Now I'm going to illustrate some cutting tasks and go through cutting some paracord. I have some rope, and then we'll cut some wood. Just sort of start talking about and show you how a sharp knife reacts to doing certain tasks. You can see that little effort on my part. You see how there's really hardly any follow through? Because I'm not really putting a lot of resistance, or I'm not putting a lot of effort into this cut. So I can just let that cutting edge do a lot of work for me, and I'm not using a lot of force. And that's one reason a sharp knife is safer than a dull knife, literally because I don't have to put a lot of effort into the cut, and there's less chance for some erratic movement when it catches, when the edge catches. Now we got our dull knife, same piece of paracord. I'm going to put the same effort I was using on the sharp knife. We'll see what happens. It's basically just skipping across, barely cutting that outer cord or a tube of the paracord. Now I'm going to put in the effort I need to actually cut through this, and pay attention to how far my hand goes. See how much more effort I had to put into that? How much farther my hand traveled at the end of the cut? Now this is still cutting. Obviously, like I said, this is still a utility edge, but you can see I have to put a lot more force into it, and it's going to tire me out faster. Not a clean cut. Here's the paracord we just cut. We're going to move on to some thicker rope. This is 100% manila. This was actually the same rope I used in the how to whip the end of a rope. And we're just going to cut through some different material just to show the edges in action. Some people say it's easier to cut through thick rope or cord like this with a coarser edge or serrations. So we'll see how that utility edge on our dull knife performs compared to our super sharp knife. And now we have our sharp knife going first in this task. And I'm going to put the least amount of effort I have to at first, just to see, how the edge reacts. Not quite the whole way through, but that's just super minimal effort on my part, excuse me. Let's do that again. And I'm really slicing. You can see I'm sort of holding the knife at an angle and slicing. Letting the edge do the work, not putting a lot of effort into it. Super easy. Let's try to do it in one slice. Let's do it one more time. This is the dull knife now. I'm going to try to put the same amount of force I was putting in with the sharp knife and see how that reacts to this rope. Actually, not too bad. Not too bad. And like I mentioned before, because this is a coarser edge and toothy and not super sharp, it actually maybe cut a little bit better in this really coarse, thick material, but we'll keep going and I'll see how I feel about the end of it. I am having to put more force in this. It might not be showing up on camera, but specifically for this cutting task, like I said, because this is a toothier, duller edge, it's almost cutting more like a serration, which actually some people say is better. Again, better for this type of cutting task, but I can tell you I'm putting a lot more force into this with the dull knife. Sharp knife, doing some wood cutting now. And like I mentioned before, what makes this knife safer in my opinion is that it's sharp and I have a lot of control with it. And this is kind of a dangerous cut, but I'm comfortable doing this because I have a lot of experience using knives. I've cut myself a lot learning, which you will do. When you're learning how to use a knife, you're going to cut yourself. That's the reality of it. But with this technique I'm going to do, you can see without the wood that I'm basically rolling the knife into this space in between my knuckles. And that's the safety in it. It's just this, literally the form of rolling my hand like this, what makes it safe, and I have a lot of control because the knife is sharp. You can see how the knife's not really skipping off the end. I'm finishing my cut with my forces being pretty much terminated how I want it to be. It's not skipping off the end erratically or anything like that because I have control and it's sharp and my technique is on point. And I'm going slow for the camera so you can see it, but I could go faster. All right, let's get the dull knife out. I think I illustrated my point. Here we have our dull knife. I'm going to probably put the same amount of force. I know it's not going to translate on camera, but I'm going to put the same amount of force I was just using in that cut and see how this performs compared. It's actually not too bad. I am putting a little bit more force in it, but I can feel it's, you know, like right there, I'm hitting resistance, and you know, when you hit resistance, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to put more effort into it and force, and that's really, you know, at the end of that, and there's a chance for that knife to come out and do something goofy because I sort of ran out of sharp blade to use. That's not doing too bad a job, and that has to do with the fact that it's still a utility edge and it has a lot of belly. There's a constant swoop on this knife, so it does make it a good slicer. But I can tell you it is taking a little bit more effort on my end to produce and do this safely. And it's a Scandi grind, which is just generally better for woodworking, in my opinion. I'm going to turn around, do some power cuts, get the sharp knife back out. Sharp knife, do some power cuts at the end of this. I'm putting a lot of force into this, obviously, because I said I'm doing a power cut. I'm getting a lot of good chunks of wood coming off. Do a couple more of this and get the dull knife out and see how that feels in the hand. All right, let's get the dull knife. Dull knife. Power cuts. I'm going to start flat. That's a really good test of a knife sharpness if you can take a real thin flat piece and not work on a ridge. If you can go really like a flat spot, you can tell if your knife's sharp if it's able to do that. Be careful, Sterny. This is the dull knife. Putting a lot more pressure into this. You can see it doesn't want to cut the whole way through it. I'll switch it over though, give it a fair shake. I'm having to put a lot more force into this, a lot more force, and it's tiring me out, and I'm starting to sweat on my brow. But the point is, you know, a duller knife will work. I'm not saying it won't. It's just the fact that you have to put more force into it, and you have less control in most cutting tasks. Those were some of the best tasks I could think of to show sort of some differences, and I know it probably didn't translate as much as I'd hoped. And I didn't really want to do anything unsafe using a dull knife to really show, you know, the difference, because I don't want to get hurt out here. I'm in the forest. But sort of to recap, the reason why I think a sharp knife is a safer knife because it requires less force on my part, which then allows me to just put my focus into control and just the motion that I wanna execute with the cut. With a dull knife, I have to put more force just to get the knife to bite, and then I have to focus on the control. I'm expending that much more energy using a dull knife for most tasks, you know, besides, like I said, cutting rope. A duller knife or a toothier edge knife will work, you know, just as well, if not maybe a little better. But the point is, if you have a dull knife, you're going to put more effort into your cuts. It's going to fatigue you faster, and we all know when we get tired and fatigued, injury likelihood goes way up. It goes way up. Now, a sharp knife can cut you a lot easier. You can just brush against yourself with a really, really sharp knife and, you know, and cut yourself on your skin. Versus a dull knife, you might have a little bit of leeway. If you bump yourself, it might not cut you right away. But the point is, if you're going to use a knife a lot, you want to hold it in your hand for a while or do a lot of tasks with it, I'm highly recommending you learn how to sharpen a knife and get it super, super sharp and maintain that edge for your own safety and for just the enjoyment of using a knife, because when it's sharp, you just have so much more control and it's going to do everything you want it to do. So if there's anything I didn't go over in detail, or if you have anything to add to this topic for a sharp knife versus a dull knife, please leave a comment, let me know. I want to learn as much as I can about knife control, knife safety, and all of that. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It lets my brother and I know that you like the content, and it helps support the channel, honestly. It's something very small you can do, and it helps support the channel. This is Krik signing out with Black Owl Outdoors. Later, turtles.